Shabbat shalom. We do think of those captives. We pray for their release soon. But I was thinking that, misperceptions rule our days. How many misperceptions have you heard in the last year? There are misperceptions about the efficacies of vaccines, of course, about our election system, the validity of global warming, to name a few. I was reading recently a study by the Annenberg School of Social Media at Penn, and they point out that those of us who wish to counter such fake news, such misperceptions, are fighting an uphill battle. In the study, they wrote that misinformation works much easier than efforts to undo it. And so I know, as many of you, in trying to speak out about Israel, you engage in a bit of wishful thinking. If only we could wipe out this or that misperception about the conflict and explain to the youth in our country or our friends that from the river to the sea is an anti-Semitic statement asking to destroy the state of Israel, making homeless half the Jewish people, and not just a call for Palestinian liberation and for peace. I don't know if you saw that Senator Chuck Schumer tried to explain this the other day from the floor of the Senate, that Jews are not colonialists, but are actually from Israel. That Israel is a diverse state with Jews of all colors and Arab citizens as well. And yes, that the conflict is complex and we all could do better in the pursuit of peace. But the evidence, according to the studies, concludes that misperceptions are very hard to change. Take Hanukkah, which we'll be celebrating in less than a week. My whole career, I've been trying to teach that Hanukkah is not a minor holiday. It's not like Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees, a quaint holiday actually based on a tax year. Nor is it like Lag BaOmer, a one-day outdoor festival, the derivation of which nearly no rabbi can agree upon. Now, Hanukkah is an 8-day celebration. Hard to call an 8-day celebration minor. That transformed Jewish history and is celebrated widely in the half of the Jewish world that is not living as a minority among a Christian majority, meaning Israel. So it's not a Christmas replacement for them as it might be for some of us tree-envious American Jews. Hanukkah is minor only in terms of its religious requirements. Unlike the Shalosh Regalim, the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Sukkot, Passover, and Shavuot, we don't limit our behavior by stopping work. We don't have a special festival service. But what do? We kindle the Hanukkah menorah. We sing songs. We add a prayer to the regular Amidah. We give gifts. We recall the miracles. And we certainly don't fast. But we rejoice in eating high-calorie, carbohydrate-laden foods, much to the chagrin of my dietitian, all the while expressing joy as we celebrate religious freedom, Jewish nationalism. And that's not a minor thing to celebrate, but it's central to the Jewish ideal. Yes, misperceptions abound. At the beginning of the recent Israel-Hamas conflict, I don't know if you saw it, but the Los Angeles Times tried to clear up a misperception about Israel. The editors realized that most Americans don't understand the geography of the conflict. It's like when you interview people in this country and ask them, how many Jews are there in the world? I'll get answers like, I think there are at least 20 million in the United States. Do you ever get that response? And that's more than the entire Jewish population on the planet. And so when it comes to the physical size of the state, we Americans can't help but see the world from the perspective of how we live. We live in a continent. We have a continental perspective about geography. So we don't get how tiny the state of Israel really is. What did the Times do? Did you see this? They overlaid a map of Israel on top of a map of the state of California. And they showed that Israel is actually less than half the size of San Bernardino County, where I'm from. Just one county, it's the biggest one, but one county in our state. And yet half the world's news seems to focus on what occurs there. The Maccabees had misperceptions as well. They were fighting for religious freedom. In fact, Hanukkah takes place after the recapture of the temple and the cleansing of it, renewing our agency over our own spiritual life. And yet they went on to win what they weren't fighting for at first. They went on to win political freedom as well. The story of the Maccabees, it's only found in 3 places: in the New Testament, the Talmud, and the writings of Josephus. And those stories are all a reminder about the indigenous nature of Jewish life in Eretz Israel. But the Maccabees were pushing against an extreme Hellenism that wanted to disappear Judaism. Does that sound familiar? And the result of their victory were twofold. They reestablished Jewish political and religious independence, and they also became Hellenized themselves, but in a way that accommodated that cultural and intellectual movement with Judaism. Some even theorized that rabbinic Judaism begins at this moment, with the priests being rejected and rabbis taking the prominent leadership role. So much for being minor in terms of the Jewish experience. And so much for misperceptions today. The argument that Israel is fighting for her existence is true. The conflict with Hamas is such a challenge because it showed the weaknesses in the fabric of Israel today, brought on by a government that focused on the wrong things. That Israeli government, instead of pursuing peace and guaranteeing Israeli security, what did they do? We were protesting against it. They let an extreme minority determine the priorities of their policy. And the reality that Hamas is winning the publicity war on the part of one generation of Americans is something not to be ignored. It's something they have to also take responsibility for. And yet those terrorist actions, they're not only challenging Israel and harming Israel, but seeing the destruction that the Palestinians in Gaza have to suffer through is so horrible. And it's a result of their extremism. They still believe that they can wipe out not just the Jewish state, but who else do they want to wipe out? All of us, all of you. They unabashedly say so, which plays into another misperception on the part of some, that Israel and we Jews can somehow be separated. No, we are one. We've never been just a religion. We are the Jewish people. And we, like the Maccabees, will not be destroyed, will not be silent, but stand up against this nihilism and these misperceptions, even here in this country, and we'll keep working to transform the Jewish world and make the larger world a better place. We won't be afraid. After Hanukkah was over, the Jewish world was different. We did begin a process of reform and renewal that led to that flowering of rabbinic Judaism we still, in a way, practice today. After this war, I believe we must be different too. I hope we can leave the world of misperception behind and begin building a future based on the reality that these two peoples need to live next to each other in peace. I think it should come through a two-state solution, but I don't know. But I understand as well that who we are as a Jewish people has to change too. Once this conflict concludes, we American Jews can no longer accept the modus vivendi in Israel, where non-Orthodox Jews are counted as second-class citizens, where the state allowed a narrow medievalist view of Judaism to dominate Jewish life, and we were not treated as one. Just as how the Jewish people changed after the Maccabees, so too we have to make this change and ensure that Israel is a state for all of us, because we are one Jewish people. At Hanukkah, the Maccabees cleansed and renewed the temple. The practice of lighting the Hanukkah each night for 8 nights became common Jewish practice. It was an act of pride, showing that the Jewish light in a world of varying luminosity shined brightly. And so we must do today. Where did the Talmud tell us to place the Hanukkah? Actually, outdoors. And if you don't have an outdoors, then to put it in the window, where others can see that you're proclaiming the miracle. I know some of you might be afraid to do so this year, but don't be. Let us put it up with pride, pushing back any fear of anti-Semitism. We are here. We are one. We are actually much stronger than we might think. And our light will continue to shine brightly. It's a Jewish light of multiple luminosity. Let us work together. Let us stand together. Let us cleanse after and be a stronger and healthier Jewish people. I wish you next week, despite all of our challenges, a happy and a joyous Hanukkah. When is it, everyone? Thursday night. And by the way, Friday night, big Hanukkah celebration here at Emanu-El, where we'll be also dedicating our new rabbi, Rabbi Westreich, with pride and with joy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yasher koach.